Black Ops 6 has officially changed COD forever. Welcome to the official Omni-Movement guide for Black Ops 6 and Warzone. What's up, everyone? It is your boy JoeWo, and in today's video I got you guys with the ultimate Omni-Movement guide where I'm gonna teach you guys how to move. Now real quick, I'm gonna be breaking this down into a couple parts, starting with part 1, and that's gonna be my settings, which are gonna be obviously very important to have good movement, and explaining Omni-Movement to you. Then we're gonna get into part 2, which is gonna be how you guys can practice and the techniques for all of these moves, and lastly that's gonna be the advanced stuff, so the goodies. Now as we get into the basics here and my settings, I do have a really cool announcement. If you guys don't follow me on other social media, you might have missed it, where I have my brand new JoeWo Scuf collection, which just launched. So if you guys go here, you can actually see my whole landing page and my new controllers. We obviously have the Envision Pro, which is gonna be the PC only version. We also have the Reflex, which is my personal controller that I'm using right now, as you guys will see during the tutorial and all that jazz. It has 4 paddles on the back, which is honestly perfect, especially for Omni movement. As my bottom left paddle, I have my slide or circle. As my bottom left paddle, I have my jump. As my top right, I have my square or my reload, and then my top left is gonna be my plating and stuff for Warzone or swapping guns. And hands down, the PS5 and the Reflex FPS is gonna be my go-to controller for many years to come. Now to celebrate me getting my new JoeWo Scuf collection, I wanna give one away to you guys. Now my favorite thing is on the right handle of all of my controllers, I got some Easter eggs. I have a 704. If you guys don't know, I am in North Carolina. I have a little lightning bolt in here for my awesome dog Bolt, and then I have a RIP dad, which if you guys don't know, my dad did pass away of stage 4 cancer when I was 12, so RIP to my pops. And just having some cool things that have shaped my life is just a cool experience to have on my personal controllers. Now all you gotta do is make sure you are subscribed down below. There's times where like 50% of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, so make sure you guys check and do that. And then in the comments, just comment controller is greater than keyboard and mouse, and I'm gonna pick one of you guys to win one of my new controllers. All right, so now let's take a dive straight into my controller settings. Now I do play on 7.7 sensitivity. I feel like a very common misconception about movement is you have to play on 2020, which is not true at all. I see that like, dude, most crack players have that, but they can't shoot straight. So honestly, I would recommend 7.7, 6.6, maximum 10.10 sensitivity. I wouldn't go above that, me personally. Now going down here again, I do not play on swapped L2 and R2 to L1 and R1. That's just personal preference. If you do like that, you can swap that easy peasy. Controller vibration, please make sure this is off. There's no benefit at all to having your controller shake and vibrate while you play. It's gonna make you miss shots. Now down to my dead zones here on my controller. I do play on 0-0 dead zone, and I also have my left stick max on 60 because that is going to make your controller and left stick more responsive as you try to do movement. I also have my right stick on 0, which I personally do, I guess you could say, get stick drift, but because I do not have to take my thumbs off of my thumbsticks because I have 4 paddles, that doesn't affect me. And I will explain that later in an aiming guide video, but 0-0 dead zone is golden. It'll make your aim insane, but I'll explain that later. And I do have left and right trigger on 0-0 also because I have mouse click triggers on my Scuf. Now going on to aiming here, I do play on 7.7.85. And if you're trying to change your sensitivity multiplier, it's gonna be right here. COD keeps adding more and more settings for whatever reason. So make sure to change this if you want to. I'm on 7.7.85. I see some people on 7.7.75. It's honestly all personal preference. Then going down to your aiming advanced settings here, aim response curve, make sure to change this to dynamic. It's gonna be very important for your aim. And I'm gonna show you guys that way later in the guide for all that in aiming. Now, going on to the most important tab here and why you're here, and it's gonna be movement. Now, this is gonna be your automatic tactical sprint setting. They did take out technically the setting for automatic tactical sprint, because I have a ton of people like, Joe, where's the setting, man? I can't move. That is gonna be tactical sprint assist. Now go down to show more here. Make sure your sprint assist delay is on 0. It's very important. This does come default at like 100 or 200, and make sure your sprint assist sideways and your sprint assist backwards is on. Now what this tactical sprint assist setting does is it's basically auto tac sprint from the old MW 2019. When you press forward on your left stick, you go straight into tac sprint, which is just like automatic tactical sprint. Now there's obviously now the tactical sprint like we had, and now you can also run and dive and stuff in any direction. But make sure you have that delay on 0. So right as you press forward, you're automatically into that tactical sprint, which is the fastest way you can sprint in the game. Going on to a couple more settings here. For me personally, this is again personal preference, but if you guys are trying to move like me, change this. I have my mantle assist and crouch assist on off, because if I'm trying to mantle something or I'm trying to jump on something, I want that to be completely on me, where I'm the one pressing X and not the game mantling something for me, or crouching when it thinks I should be crouching and I don't want to. I die like that all the time when the setting is like that on, and I make sure to always turn that off, because there's nothing more infuriating than mantling something when you don't want to, then you got to hip fire and it's all awkward. And yeah. Now going down here again, a very, very important setting here, and that's going to be slide and dive. Most likely this is going to be on slide only as default. Make sure to change this to hybrid. And what that means is when you press your circle button, you slide, and when you hold in L3, you dive. So as you can see here, beautiful controller overlay and beautiful controller on screen here. If you just are sprinting and press slide, you slide, and if you are holding in your sprint and press circle, you dive. That is going to be the hybrid setting. Now, do not get angry, because I switched to this, I would probably say like 6 months ago. It takes a while to get used to. There'd be times where I accidentally dive when I don't want to and things like that, but it's definitely a very, very important setting, because diving is very important, because now you can dive and shoot, which you couldn't do in previous Call of Duties. So this is going to make your movement insane, especially when you're diving. Take some time to get used to though, so just know that. So then going down to sprint restore and side maintain sprint, I have that on, and that is going to be because it doesn't require you as a player to use more buttons. Previously in Modern Warfare 2019, we had to press circle, circle X, and then sprint to side cancel. Now, side canceling is easier than ever. All you have to do is press circle and you will keep sprinting. Now, you can press jump early to then stop your slide. But if you are just doing a basic slide and jump, a basic slide cancel, you can just press circle and keep sprinting, and that is that slide maintain sprint. Now going on to movement advanced settings here, I have on a single tap run, which does help when you are trying to get into a tactical sprint quicker than if you were just pushing your left stick forward. And I also have grounded mantle off, because again, I want to mantle stuff when I am trying to mantle it by pressing my paddle and not having the game do it for me. Again, this is personal preference, but I definitely have this setting off because I'm not trying to mantle stuff randomly. The other thing is mantle cancels reload. Have that off also, because if I am trying to reload, I'm going to do that first. Or if I'm mantling something and I'm getting into a gunfight, I'm just going to YY out of it and keep shooting if I have enough bullets. Now let's get into what is Omni-Movement. Now, Omni-Movement, compared to all of the other Call of Duties, is now you can sprint, dive, slide, run in any direction that you want to, which is honestly insane. Obviously, in previous Call of Duties, you could only run forward and then change your centering from your right stick to be where it should be. Now, this is absolutely insane, because this is game-changing movement, where now you can run in any direction, slide in any direction that you couldn't do before, which just completely changes movement. So the other cool thing about Omni-Movement is now when you dive, you actually dive and lay on the side that you're diving in. So obviously, as you see, I dive on my right side now, and I'm laying on my right side on the ground. Or if I dive left, I'm gonna be laying on my left side on the ground. And it goes the same thing for diving backwards, which catches so many people off guard, because obviously in previous Call of Duties, what you could only do is lay forward and go prone, which is like drop shotting and stuff like that. But now, if you dive to a certain side, it's gonna look crazy on your opponent's screen, and it almost looks like a dead body. I've seen people complain, I dive to it too, and I'm just not expecting it, where it looks like somebody is a dead body on the ground, compared to in all the previous Call of Duties, they're just laying down like a normal prone. And you can catch a ton of people off guard, diving backwards, and you're laying on your back and shooting in the air. It's wicked. Now let's get into part 2 and how you guys can practice. Now, I'm currently in a private match on Black Ops 6. You guys can do this too. All I do is I'm just gonna pick a mode like free-for-all. I'm gonna set the timer to unlimited, and I'm just gonna go practice my movement. Now, if you guys feel like you need help with your aim and stuff too, you can definitely add bots and stuff like that. Or later when Warzone drops, which I'll be doing a whole movement guide for Warzone, you can go into Plunder or something like that, where you can keep dying over and over. It's gonna be okay, right? But you can go into something like that that and just practice your movement around the map, even fighting people. So I'm just gonna jump into a match here. All right, so here we are in the game now, and this is honestly the best way for you guys to learn the basics of Omni-Movement and put these settings and stuff to the test. Now, as we're in the game here, like I was saying, now you can run, slide, dive, all that stuff in any direction that you want. But a very, very important thing about movement that I think a lot of people don't talk about is going to be centering. Now, what centering is in Call of Duty, or honestly in any FPS, is where your crosshairs are on the screen. And a mistake I see a lot of people do, you guys have probably seen those TikToks, which I can show you, where people are on 20 cents, like staring at the ground, YYing in circles, and that isn't going to work against anybody that's halfway decent. The most important thing is that your crosshairs are where you're going to be expecting an opponent or enemy to be at all times. So for example, right, if I'm going to be going up these stairs, I see a lot of people just looking at the ground while they're running. And the problem with that is when you're going upstairs, let's say there's an enemy that's going to be here, or they're laying down or something like that, you have to then take your aim from here to go to the opponent, which is obviously going to be a lot of time. And in Call of Duty, time to kill is usually pretty fast. So this can be the difference in you winning or losing a gunfight. So whenever you're going to be going into a fight, you can be sliding into a fight and pre-aiming or having your centering where an opponent should be. That is hands down the most important step for anything first-person shooter, is when you're going around a corner, you're ready to aim and your crosshairs are ready where somebody could be. I see people as they're playing Warzone, as they're playing multiplayer, as they're looting, they're staring at the ground, getting this, or they're up too high. And then when somebody is gonna be where they usually are, which does take repetition, they have to then take their aim from here to here or from here to here, which is going to be very, very valuable time where they could just be dying. Again, that obviously is going to take practice from the different maps, from the different buildings, things like that, where instead of going into this fight where you're just doing this, you are then sliding into a fight already ready for this person to be here. Now, the other important thing about Omni-Movement 2, which I see a lot of people that's like, Joe, I keep getting dead sides if I try to go side to side, and I can help you guys fix that right now. So obviously, as you guys know, and I hope my controller camera can show that now, where you guys can see the timing on the things and the time that I'm doing this, is when you guys are going to slide left to right, the most important thing is you cannot slide left to right from a dead stop. So as you guys see, if I try to do it at the same time right now, I just crouch, which that is the dead side that you guys are probably experiencing. When you guys are trying to slide left to right, your gun has to be in that certain animation where it's like, it's kind of tilted to the side, or you're like hugging your gun. So you have to be sprinting first, and then you can slide left to right where your gun does that animation like you're almost hugging it. Same thing for as you're going backwards, because if you try that backwards, you'll just crouch. And that is a lot of the experience that I think people are experiencing with the dead side. Same thing for forward, you'll just crouch. It has to be either in that tack sprint animation if you're going forward, or if you're going side to side, you have to be hugging your gun to truly get that slide experience. Same thing for diving, you will get a dead side if you do not have that same thing. But if you are on hybrid, you do have to be clicking in your left stick to get that dive animation. So now I have my goated editor Sooner, who now I'm going to be showing you guys his POV when I'm fighting. Because obviously it's super cool to see my POV, but the most important thing is what your opponents see when you're fighting them. So this is going to be the first thing, is when you are going into a slide cancel. Now obviously, as you're going to be breaking somebody's camera, that is going to be much harder to track, and this is going to be what it looks like on their screen when you go into a slide cancel. So now I can show you guys what it looks like as you're gonna be sliding sideways. Now again, I showed you guys your gun has to be on the side. So if you do see somebody, you can throw that shoulder around the corner, and then you can slide sideways, and it's gonna catch your opponents completely off guard. So as you can see them here, slide sideways and get the kill. And on their screen, it's gonna look absolutely insane. So now I'm gonna show you guys what it looks like when you are diving at your opponent. And this is gonna be that very, very important setting, which I showed you guys in part 1, which is gonna be that hybrid setting. And now you can dive and shoot in Black Ops 6 and Omni-Movement. If this happens to you, you know, and it's gonna absolutely just shock your opponent, and they're gonna be caught off guard for sure. So obviously now, as we have the diving, you can dive left to right. So as your opponents are going to be chasing you, or if you are one shot, that is going to be an easy way to catch them off guard and break their camera, compared to in the past, you would usually just run around the corner and pre-aim. This is what this looks like now. So obviously when you're going to be fighting somebody and you dive around a corner, that's going to be way harder to track. That's going to break their camera. So the other thing is how important that slide is from left to right and now backwards, because obviously in previous Call of Duties, you couldn't ever actually slide backwards. And now you have the ability to do that. And instead of being stuck on stairs, you can do stuff like this. And on your opponent's screen, when they're trying to track you, you're going to be a much smaller target. You're going to be moving and you have that ability to slide and shoot. So obviously now being able to slide and dive in any direction, you can also now dive backwards. So if you get those pings on your minimap, you can now do things like this and dive backwards. And your opponent is not going to expect that. But in those previous CODs, you just had to jump down or slide down and be stuck in that quicksand. So as I was explaining in part 1, the difference is as you go prone now, that is the traditional prone, which we have all seen in all of the Call of Duties. Now being able to Omni movement and dive backwards on your opponent's screen, this is going to look way different. And I've even been caught off guard where it looks like it's a dead person on the ground and now they're in just a different angle than what you usually see. So the other really important movement technique is now being able to jump, and while you're in midair, hold your slide button and you'll get almost like a speed boost, and you can be sliding and shooting it on your opponent's screen. This looks crazy. So the basics of this is as you are running, you're going to jump, but you're not going to click slide until you are fully in the air, and you're going to be holding your slide through the air like this. But on your opponent's screen, it's going to look absolutely insane because you can see them as you are still sliding and shooting, and it's just going to catch them off guard while you're sliding across their screen and breaking their camera. So the other important thing is as your opponents are chasing you and as you are at that point of no return while you're fighting, it's making sure that where your opponent expects you to be, you are not there. So as somebody is chasing me around that corner, you can now do an Omni movement dive backwards, which looks like this. Which as that opponent goes around the corner, they're going to expect you to be here or here into cover, and instead you are doing a full dive backwards, which is much, much harder to track than if you were just standing still or crouching waiting on your opponent. So the cool thing too is now with Omni movement, whenever you're sliding off of stuff, it gives you that kind of Apex Legends feel if you played Apex, where now you get a slight speed boost when you slide off of objects. So if there is something that you can obviously stand on and walk on, and there is nothing to obstruct like where you could be going, you can slide off stuff and land on your feet. And instead of then just sprinting into a gunfight or trying to walk into a gunfight where your opponent is, you can now do a slide off of stuff, and it's gonna look insane on their screen, and you're staying on your feet to keep that tack sprint going and to keep that movement just keeping flowing with your other opponents. So as I'm touching on the points and how important your centering is, as you can see, most people as they are up here are going to be standing pre-aiming down where somebody is going to be. Now, what I see a lot of people do with their gameplay is as they are going to run up these stairs, one, they aren't sliding and stuff, they're just sprinting and they're always looking at the ground. So as they have to go from here to aim at their opponent, that is a lot of time that their opponent can see them and I can't see my opponent. So the most important thing is as you're going into those gunfights, you are sliding into them, diving into them where your opponent is going to be or should be, and not running up into the stairs and looking at the ground or looking too high. So as you're sliding into those gunfights, making sure you're aiming where your opponent should or could be. And that does take a lot of practice and repetitions, but it is very important. And the most important thing across all first-person shooters is having good centering. Now that is gonna wrap up our movement and Omni movement guide for Black Ops 6 and Warzone. Now, obviously we have Warzone coming up very, very soon. If you're watching in the future, it's probably already out. If you guys want to see a movement guide part 2 of anything else or any other people's POVs, or honestly anything, let me know down below. Obviously make sure you guys subscribe, like today's video if you guys learned something new, but I will be for sure dropping an advanced part where I show you guys kind of my moves and why I do them, and then also showing you in the future an aiming guide, a centering guide, all that kind of stuff, because all that does really tie into movement and your skill as a player. So make sure you guys comment down below what you guys think of Omni movement. If you guys have any questions for me, I will be responding to every single comment. So let me know what you guys think. I love you guys, and I'll be seeing you soon. All right, peace.